let's talk about your situation, because you write this book, you put it out, then in the process of putting it out, you get into a really gnarly car accident that actually has prevented you from being as active as you'd like to be. I'm gonna throw a picture up here for folks.
Yeah, ironically, as I was writing the book, I was in the gym, like, thinking about these new insights, but then like 75-80% of the way through, I get injured and I'm just not able to work out.
Yeah.
And even since then, I've like worked out sometimes, done some things here and there, but.
And you got into this car. I got your if you can see it.
Yeah.
So what happened? It looks like there's some snow in the background. There's a lot of snow.
Yeah.
And it looks like you got into a really crazy car accident.
Yeah. So what was happening was my dad called me. He's like, hey, can you pick me up from the airport? I forget where he was going, but we pick up from the airport. So I was like, okay. And then I left, but then I was kind of late. So I started driving a bit fast, and it was sort of in the night also. And then there was some, I guess I underestimated how much snow and how wet it was, because the snow was kind of melting. I was like, oh, the roads are generally clear, right? So then I started just driving. I was going about 110 kilometers an hour, which is like, I think,
not miles, guys, kilometers.
Yeah, kilometers. I guess like 70 miles or something like that. So I was just driving and chilling, and then I tried to turn somewhere, and I started trying to slow my car down, but I think there was some water in my tires. I got hydroplaned, which means that there's water in your tires. And then I just lost control. I felt like I was playing like Mario Kart or something like that. I was like, whoa, what the heck? I can't even control my car. And then I was on the outside lane. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna like hit this car if I keep going. So I got swerved over. And then there was a giant sign right in front of me that was like, hey, 50 more kilometers till you get to this other place, whatever that is in miles. And I was just I swerved, and then I was like, oh no, come on, I gotta like dodge this thing, but I couldn't. And I just hit the front of the car. It actually hit the driver's side of the car, so I felt the most of the impact came on my side. And airbags flew up, and I was just there. I think I was knocked out for like maybe like 30 seconds or something like that, because I don't remember really crashing. I just remember like opening my eyes and being in complete shock. And I was looking for my phone. I couldn't find it because it was dark. And I was just there, just like wailing in pain. And then someone came in. I think they turned in, and they were like, hey, I called 911. And I was like, can you open the door for me? And then they didn't do it because 911 told them not to do it.
That door, was that ripped off?
Yeah, they had like some kind of chainsaw or something.
They had to take that door off.
Yeah, they had to rip it off because the door actually got jammed. They couldn't open it.
Oh my gosh. And so what injuries did you end up sustaining from this?
So I got a tendinosis in my supraspinatus, which is a muscle in the shoulder. I still have that. It's gotten better, but I still have that. In my hip, I think it's my iliopsoas. I forget what the specific injury was, but I remember my iliopsoas got messed up, and my ankle is also messed up. I forget what injury is there. I've mostly paid attention to my shoulder, because you can't really do anything without your shoulder. You sort of realize how little you can actually do without your shoulder. Like I can do maybe some leg exercises, and that's more or less kind of it for what I can do.
And how long ago was this accident?
This was in March 2023.
Wow. So this has been over a year.
It's been over a year, yeah.
And now, how can you exercise at all? Are you exercising? What is
that look like? I can do like bicep curl, tricep extension, because it doesn't aggravate my shoulder too much. And I can do lunges because my hip can handle that. If I do squats, then my hip kind of gets all messed up. But I can do lunges. I can do like leg extensions, I guess. And that's sort of the gist of it. I can do bench press up till, maybe it's just for statistics, right? I can do like 2 plates bench press still. But before I could do like 375 pounds of the bench press. So it's much less than I could do before, but like I can still do that. I can still work my chest a little bit. And if you were to see me when it first happened, though, I couldn't walk. So I couldn't walk for the first like 2 or some weeks when it happened. And going up the stairs for the first like 2 months was extremely difficult because my ankle would just be like in serious pain. So I had to walk on my toes for a while. And if you saw where I came from, then you'd be like, you made a lot of progress. But yeah, I'm still looking to finish that. This last like 10% of healing has been taking a very long time. And yeah.
Man, I mean, you're still able to do 2 plates on the bench. That's rather impressive, bro. This man's hitting 225, and that's light. It sounds like there's a genetic gifting that you have to be able to lift for a couple of years and be able to hit those sorts of weights.
Yeah, I think that even before I started lifting, actually, I realized I was stronger than the average person.
Yeah.
When I played basketball, there's like some pictures of me playing basketball, and I just had like these giant shoulders and arms relative to everyone else in the court. I was like, wow, I have some gift. Like maybe I just like did push-ups better than everyone else. Yeah. That's what I thought at first, but then I started like lifting weights.
Yeah.
And I saw other people lift weights, and I'm like, I'm getting more muscle than you are, and we're doing the exact same things. Like I have some kind of genetic.
When you were playing ball, were you dunking?
I could dunk off an alley-oop.
Okay.
So like I'm 5'8", so like okay.
That's fantastic.
I measured my vertical when I was in school. It was 37 inches at its peak. So
yeah, there you go. So considering you have a clear genetic advantage and then you have this accident, it sounds like maybe, I don't want to speak this with confidence, but maybe God allowed you to experience some of these challenges right after, or right in the process of writing this book, that like a lot of people who are like, hey man, that's great for you, bro. Like you're shredded, like you're hitting 225 hurt, like, but now you're like, you've gone through adversity, like real adversity. You could have allowed to derail your own fitness journey. And maybe you feel like maybe God allowed that to happen to allow you to be more relatable to people that are going through real challenges and are like, bro, it's not as easy as you think. Like, here's my life and it sucks. And you're telling me to go to the gym. Like, cool story, bro. Do you think that this situation having had happened to you, it could be to make you more relatable to people?
Yeah. So as you were saying that question, actually, I was thinking, okay, so maybe my journey was, okay, I get muscular, I get all this power, get all this influence. Because I was talking before about how when you have physical capabilities, you have sort of social influence. Mm-hmm. And people were taking my opinions more seriously. I was saying, hey, save yourself for marriage. And they're like, well, like you look like you can, this is what they say anyways. They look like you can, have premarital if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. And I just refrained from that. So they sort of take my word more seriously. And then I get this accident and now I'm like sort of at baseline. So I'm sort of like gone from like the peak of, not the peak, but like a very high level of power to like a very low level of power. And I sort of get to relate to everyone.
But just for the record, low level of power is still relative for you. But go ahead, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah. So yeah, perhaps it was something like that. I have contemplated quite a bit, like why did God allow this to happen to me? Like what have I done? I think everyone sort of, when something traumatic like that happens to them, mm-hmm. they sort of feel that way. And maybe that's part of it. It's still something I'm contemplating right now. Still something I'm sort of thinking of. How does this affect my life? Like, why did God allow this to happen? What lesson am I supposed to take from this? That's the question I've been thinking of ever since it really happened, actually. So, yeah, I'm not fully processed it, but maybe that's one perspective you can have.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think when someone is genetically gifted and then they're a fitness influencer, though on the surface level, it gives them more credibility because, well, clearly, like you're shredded, right? You're jacked, but on a very interpersonal relatability level, once you get beneath that initial onion of like, oh, this dude's jacked, he looks great with his shirt off, but you go a level deeper and then you find out, well, wait a minute, this person has had setbacks, right? Versus someone that may not be as genetically gifted that then has a crazy physical transformation, And so I think the challenges and adversity like this, in my opinion, probably in the grand scheme of the narrative of your story, will make you more relatable and connect more to the average person than just like, oh yeah, dude, like I started lifting weights and 6 weeks later I was jacked, and it's like, well, okay, bud, like, and now I'm a bodybuilder and you should be fit too. But when you're like, hey, I had this massive setback and I couldn't really do much stuff, and it really, I think in the grand narrative, I think that's going to make you feel the needs of like the average person walking around, that they did the 6 months of lifting and they couldn't have access to proper nutrition, or they couldn't have they just couldn't get the movements properly, or they did the movements properly and they had access to proper nutrition, but they gained 5 pounds instead of 25 pounds of newbie gains,
Yeah.
So I think these are the things that, in my opinion, just looking from the outside in, will make you more relatable and make people connect with you more.
Yeah. So another thing that I've noticed as I got injured actually is that it's not just the physicality of muscular Christianity that is something that I resonate with. I was rereading chunks of my book before I came here. Just the overall mindset of it. I talked before about how you gotta have the Mambo mentality for faith. I've sort of embodied that, sort of learned to embody that more. I've been paying more attention to other aspects of my spiritual life, not just my physicality, but just everything about my spiritual life. How am I portraying God in the way that I act, the way that I speak? That's been something I've been focusing on a lot. And again, just like the idea that life is just this giant journey towards God and towards reaching your ideal. You know, physicality is one ideal that you can have, and it's a very physical manifestation of that ideal. But there's all sorts of ideals that you can reach, right? And I've been focusing on just trying to focus and reach those ideals. And my muscular Christianity mindset that I had when I made the book is still applicable, right? I'm still thinking like competition is one of the parts I talk about in my book as well. So I'm thinking like, you know, I'm going to like, sometimes when I'm like wrestling with something, I'm like, I need to just destroy this thing. I need to like completely annihilate this from my life. I need to drop 50 points on the devil, pretty much, you know? Like that's sort of my mindset with it. I'm gonna destroy this thing. I'm gonna burn it to ashes, and upon its ashes, I'm gonna erect a 10,000-foot statue of Jesus. Right? That's sort of my mindset. And my muscular Christianity, when I was writing this book, I sort of developed that mindset. I sort of harnessed that testosterone that I had into transferring not just to weightlifting, but to writing. And I realized that sort of mindset is applicable not just to weightlifting, not just to sports, but like in all areas of life.
That's good.
For all people who want to, or into self-improvement, or into any kind of human development whatsoever, to reach that ideal, to strive for that ideal, and to push towards that with God, with the Almighty God by your side, lighting up, shepherding your every move, and empowering you, is something that I've really started to embody a lot more in other areas of my life. So maybe that's another reason that I was supposed to go through this accident.
We're gonna go over to our Patreon exclusive segment. We're gonna have a conversation with my man Paul about something that's a little too spicy for YouTube. I want to specifically get into, does he think there's an intentional feminization of men happening in culture? Where is this sort of stuff coming from? And some of the other topics are going to be discussed. Take a look at this here. Do you think there's a calculated effort to try and make men more feminine in this culture?
Men created these structures and these formations in society that were so durable that they sort of made themselves, like the fact that people are sort of, for lack of a better word, like overcompensating in a sense with Andrew Tate, and then becoming like actually toxic.
What final like words of advice would you have for men that, you know, are 16, 17, 18, 19 years old? They're trying to figure it out. Where would you tell them to start?
Ruslan